Good afternoon and welcome to the City Council meeting of June 17th, 2024. I'll call this meeting to order and ask that you all rise for the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to our very own Tennille Towns for the singing of our national anthem and to the National Film Board for the images of our country. Now take the opportunity to read our land acknowledgement. The city respectfully acknowledges the Beaver Cree, Dene, and Metis people as the original caretakers of these lands and surrounding areas. We are grateful to live, learn, work, and play on Treaty 8 territory within Turtle Island and acknowledge these lands have been home to diverse and sovereign First Nations and Inuit nations since time immemorial. Moving on to the fourth item on your agenda today, the adoption of the previous council minutes, recognizing Councillor Bressie.
The council meeting held June 3rd as presented.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue for discussion or debate, I'll call the question. Please vote.
Councillor Bosch in favour.
And that carries unanimously. Moving on to the adoption of today's agenda, recognizing Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to move council adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you for that. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Moving on through our agenda, there are no delegations here today. I would just remind those who might be watching at home, if you'd like to come speak to council, there is a very simple form online that we ask you fill out ahead of time. If we have a evening session, there is always a second option. Today we are not having an evening session. And no delegations let us know ahead of time. So we'll move on to reports. Item 7.1, the transfer of land to Metis Local 1990. And I'll turn this one over to Mr. Lemieux for introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So some time ago, Council directed administration to work with the land for a transfer of land to the Metis Local 1990. So our Housing and Homeless Initiatives Director, Wendy Hughes, has worked with our legal department to finalize that agreement, and so she's here to speak to that.
All right. Welcome, Ms. Hughes.
The report before you is a follow-up to the June 20th, 2023 request that land located at 9702 99th Ave be transferred to Metis Local 1990. The land is currently owned by the city and has been leased to Metis Local 1990 for the past 20 years. The building is fully paid for and is operating as an elders caring shelter. The shelter has 17 bed spaces for individuals with a history of housing instability. And on December 11th, 2023, Council recommended that administration work with Metis Local 1990 on a proposed land transfer agreement with terms and conditions satisfactory to the city solicitor and the city manager. Negotiations related to a draft order offer to purchase, also known as a land transfer, is now concluded with mutually agreed upon terms and conditions. The land transfer agreement contains the following terms and conditions. Number one, the purchase price for the land is set at $1. Number two, if within 5 years the purchaser stops using the land for its current use, for example, providing affordable housing services to Indigenous people who require low-income housing, then the city may buy back the land for a buyback price equal to 85% of the fair market value of the building and the lands. And number three, if within 5 years the purchaser attempts to sell the land to a third party, then the city may step in and buy the lands for a buyback price equal to 85% of the fair market value of the building on the lands. To continue with the success of the programming and supports and housing options, the land and the building ownership would enable sustainability and future expansion. While the terms of the land agreement transfer provides some protections against the sale or the change of use within the 5-year period. As such, administration recommends council approve the transfer of 9702 99th Ave to Metis Local 1990. And I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Recognizing Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton, and thanks, Ms. Hughes, for bringing this forward. This isn't, we're not setting any precedent here. If I can recall, we've recently done this with Sunrise House and Rising Above. Are there any other examples you can think of?
Thank you. Through the chair, not at this time. We may have a future report coming forward for Canadian Mental Health Association.
Okay, thank you.
Recognizing Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Ms. Hughes, I'm just curious, after the 5 years, it doesn't matter? Could you, because we either get a payback up to 5 years, but after that, I'm just wondering what the process is.
Mr. Burke?
Under this one is a little different than some of our other arrangements, although this did recognize the Métis Local's contribution to the building and our long-standing relationship with them, and that they have been there, and I think it's approximately 20 years already, and that's why this one has a bit shorter time frame than others, is that they already have we have a long-standing relationship with them and use of this land.
I think that was important for the community to hear that, and I'm ready to do business if there's nobody else.
I have other people. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I've certainly said many times that while we may use a partnership in land as a good way to get nonprofit organization projects off the ground, there comes a time when we need to give them the authority over the land themselves. And so I've been a proponent of this for quite some time and really look forward to voting in favor of the motion when it gets on the floor.
Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I, too, am looking forward to supporting this motion as it gets on the floor. Just a question in regards to the land transfer. The CAO mentioned we've had a long-standing relationship with Métis Local. It's my experience that we had a fairly good property tax arrangement with them where I believe they pay $2 for their property taxes on an annual basis. With this land transfer deal, is the same agreement that we had with property taxes still in place, or would this not-for-profit be subject to paying full property taxes?
Ms. Hughes.
Thank you, through the chair. So it will remain the same unless the change of the building does change.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to move that council approve the transfer of 9702 99th Avenue to Métis Local 1990.
That motion is in order. I don't see anybody in the queue with discussion or debate, so I will call the question. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Moving on to committee business. First item of committee business today is a Public and Protective Services Committee meeting held June 11th, and I will turn that one over to Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to move that council adopt the minutes of the Public and Protective Services Committee meeting held June 11th as presented.
Thank you for that motion. I'll call the question. That's carried unanimously. Councillor O'Connor, some highlights from your meeting.
Yes, I have a couple of highlights. One very important, that animal licensing campaign will started on May 21st and goes to July 10th. This is to educate and remind city residents to license all dogs and cats so that they may receive an animal tag. This provides the owner information if the animal is found. And lastly, RCMP participated in commemoration of the 80th anniversary of D-Day and the Battle of Normandy, June 8th. So, lest we never forget. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor O'Connor. Moving on to the InvestGP committee meeting of June 11th, item 8.2 in your package, and I will turn that one over to Councillor Blackmore.
I'd move that council adopt the minutes of the InvestGP meeting as presented.
Thank you. That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. You have a couple items of business. Councillor Blackmore, if you wanted to go ahead with the first one.
I do. I'm going to change the wording of the First Amendment slightly, or the first motion slightly. I'm going to move that council support the Grande Prairie Junior A Storm, including offer ice at city rinks for the youth hockey development programming, summer camps, fall and winter skill sessions, and junior storm spring hockey at no cost. 2, to waive the Bonnett's Energy Center facility fee for the 24-25 season. And 3, to partner with the Storm on large events such as the home opener Indigenous Night, Playoff Fan Festival, and Prospects Camps. And speaking to the motion, the reason I changed that slightly at the beginning is the word partnership often connotates more than perhaps we are offering as support to the Storm. So I felt it was better not to word it that way.
All right. So that motion is in order. Discussion, debate, recognizing Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. If I can just ask administration, or maybe my memory's not working, but did we defer the payments for this year? Was that in a separate motion, or was that?
We did, but I'll turn it over to CFO Whiteway for an explanation.
Thank you, through the mayor. So that's already been done for a couple of years. My apologies, I don't have it up in front of me, but I believe 2026 is when they'll remain back to their payment schedule.
Okay, thanks for that. I appreciate that. And then my other question, do we not charge any other of our sports or user groups for facility rentals when they're doing events that are for profit? I mean, I'm specifically asking about when they're doing their hockey development, their programming for summer camps. These are fundraisers for the Storm. Do we have any other organizations that the city gives free space to in that regards, as far as sports groups when they're doing camps or development programs?
I'll look to Chief Lemieux, but I see Ms. Bieberdorf also coming over. Your mic is on, and if you just, Ms. Bieberdorf, if you wanted to take that question, thank you.
Sure, thank you, Mayor Clayton. We do have a policy that does allow the facility managers to offer reduced fees for particular events. Typically, that would be things like the Aboriginal hockey event that we just had, the Alberta Winter Games, but not typically full gift in kind for camps and other events like that.
And can I just, do we have kind of an idea of how much amount this would be as far as free rental would be? How many hours, or?
Ms. Whiteway?
Thank you, through the mayor. So I can go with what the 23-24 season was. So the net city impact was around 83,000 in lost revenues.
And that's from the camps, the season games, like that's the bouquet of all the things?
Yeah, so that would have been the Storm Game Ice and the Junior Storm Ice, as well as the costs of staffing required during those times. And the that is offset by we do receive some catering commission during those games.
Okay, no, appreciate that. I guess the only thing I'd ask Mayor Clayton is fully in support of trying to help the Storm out. I'm struggling with number one, so I wouldn't be supportive of number one. I'm just wondering if we can break those out. I want to look like
Make a motion to split this.
I'd like to make a motion that we split the.
You don't even need a motion. My apologies. Just indicate you'd like to split them out.
I'd like to see the motion split, please.
Thank you. I am going to go to count. So those are split, but still, Councillor Bressie had a question for administration, I'm assuming.
Actually, Councillor Palat asked the same question. Amending motion I'd like to make on number one whenever.
Okay. So we are going to, so seeing no one else in the queue with questions for administration, now going to go to the business arising. In your e-scribe, it has been split out. We currently, if I could ask Councillor Blackmore has made that motion already. So that motion being split out is in your e-scribe. Discussion or debate on the current motion, which was the first item in the original motion. Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would like to move that we amend this to read at 50% cost. Just to speak to this, I want to support the Storm, and honestly, if the whole amount they were saving was going to fundraising for the Storm, I might be more amenable to save this. But we heard that part of it is that they're making these camps cheaper than they'd be elsewhere as well. And for me, there's a lot of sports that happen in the city. Ice services are maybe tied, maybe close to the pool, but other than the pool, the most expensive facility we provide to groups. And for me, if we're not providing free soccer development space for soccer development, for volleyball development, for basketball development, for all those other sports, I'm not really interested in providing free space for hockey, but I am okay with making it a little bit cheaper than it currently is. So I hope that council will support this. I'd also note that the difference between this and option 2 is, as we heard from our CFO, when there's a Storm game happening, we do get concession income. Also, I think those Storm games do make the naming rights to that building worth more, other sponsorships worth more. So when the Storm itself are playing, we are getting revenue, even if we're not collecting revenue direct from the Storm. It's not the same when these camps are happening. So I think we should be collecting some revenue for these camps that are happening, just like we collect from other sport groups.
All right. Thanks for your comments. Your amendment is in order. So, council, that was to amend the first motion to say insert 50% cost. So it'd be council support the Grande Prairie Junior A Storm, including offering ice at city rinks for the youth hockey development programming at a 50% cost. So that is the amendment. Currently, discussion or debate on that 50% amendment. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I will not support this amendment. I think that the Junior Storm organization is unique in this city. It is not, the dozens and dozens of other similar organizations that run sporting events. I think that it is a higher level of sport, and you're bringing in all this youth to aspire to do something within their community, hopefully stay with the Storm over the years, and try out for that team and see how they can do with, moving on to college attributes in this. So I would not be in support at the 50%. I would be supportive of the full amount, just like last year. I do see that the Storm has been working really, really hard, the board and the administration, on tightening up costs, tightening up every aspect of running that business, as we all are in every one of our businesses. So I don't think I feel it's punishing them for doing a good job. So I would not be supportive of this amendment.
Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton, and thanks for the motion of Councillor Brush. I appreciate it. I will be for sure supporting this. I'm a big fan of the Storm and what they've done in our community, but I do not like the precedent that it sets if we're going to start allowing one organization to get free facilities for free. There's a lot of sports groups that do camps in our community that do a lot of economic development impact to our organization or to the community. And so I don't like picking one champion in this. That's what, in essence, if we're giving this group 100% free facility rentals, we're kind of picking a champion. And I worry about the precedents it would set. If I was a organization group that was renting our facilities, that was going to come in and was going to rent our facilities at full pop, after seeing a motion like this, if it got approved, it'd make me question why I wouldn't be coming and asking for my special group to ask for free facilities as well. There's a lot of community groups do a lot of great things in our community. SORM is one of them. Happy to support the other motions, though, but not this one. Or this one I'll support, not happy to support the other one. So we'll have to support the other ones. Jeez.
Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Well, Councillor Plott makes some good points, and he may have sold me, but when I chimed in, I was not in support of Councillor Bressy's motion, and I guess I'll see how the debate goes here. But some good things to advise. One, we want the Storm to be successful. As they're successful, so too is our arena. Part of that is building new fans. Part of that is building new hockey players who are already fans. So those summer camps that they have with kids is germane to them growing their sport. It's germane to them growing their fan base and their audience, and it's germane to them being successful. I might be in support of this. Give us one more year, and I might say pay full price for all this. But right now, I think the key of this ask is to ensure that the Storm stay on good footing, and that they nurture their fan base through the young and teach them some hockey skills. We already know that hockey is, well, I'm going to put it this way. It's a have sport, not a have not sport, right? There's a lot of expense that goes into hockey. By reducing the costs for the children who want to play hockey, in fact, it's kind of a community service for kids that may otherwise not have that chance to play, especially if the costs go down with that. The other thing too, Councillor Bressy made a good point that our arenas are very expensive, and we want to ensure that we have full utilization of those. If we're not training future hockey players or ice skaters, how are we going to fill up the leagues and other stuff like that as inflation and other economic pressures goes up and makes sports such as hockey a bit more harder to attain for everybody? So for all those reasons, this year I'm an in and perhaps an out of voting for Councillor Bressy's motion, unless somebody has some other zingers like Councillor Platt.
Recognizing Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I will be supporting this motion for the reasons that were stated about the 50% cost. I feel that there is a need to recover some of the costs of the facility. It covers manpower, it covers the ice, and it covers the loss of other revenue when that facility isn't being used. So thank you.
All right. Seeing no further discussion on the amendment, I'll call the question on the amendment to change the amount to 50%. And that passes 7-2. Now, moving back to vote on the amended motion. So council support the Grande Prairie Junior A Storm, including offering ice at city rinks for the youth development program at a 50% cost. Discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Moving on to the second motion, as made by Councillor Blackmore, that council support the Grande Prairie Junior A Storm, including waive the Bonnets Energy Centre facility fee for the 24-25 season. Discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Moving on to the third motion, the council support the Grande Prairie Junior A Storm, including partnership with the Storm on large events such as the home opener, Indigenous Night, Playoff Fan Festival, and the Prospects Camp. I'll open that up for discussion or debate. Seeing none, Councillor Bosch.
Speaking to this, I'd just like to know in what capacity are you talking about partnering?
So as the question was asked at committee when the organization was here, and it was not in regards to cash contributions, it was in regards to promotions of the event, or access to the team within the facility, setup, etc.
Access to the team?
The team, like the administrative team.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else to add, Councillor Blackmore, that I missed on that?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Councillor O'Toole.
I'm fully supportive of it. It was a storm that brought this up, and if they want to put their players out on the board and help contribute to the community, then I'm all for it. So, thank you.
All right. Seeing no one else in the queue, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Blackmore, second item of business.
The second item of business is a motion to accept the healthcare attraction and retention strategy as presented. I'm going to ask Chief McEachern if she would like to introduce this, as it was a fairly lengthy report.
Thanks for that. Chief McEachern.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this healthcare attraction and retention strategy is something that we've been working on for a little while. And as presented at committee, we are looking to proceed with the strategy, as well as we've outlined an extensive action plan, which would go from 2024 to 2026, with a number of activities that are funded through our current 2024 budget for healthcare strategy through the capital account and economic development operating budgets.
And so the motions are to accept the healthcare attraction and retention strategy as presented, and number 2, to accept the healthcare strategy 2024-26 action plan as presented, with activities identified for the 2024 funded through the 2024 healthcare strategy capital account and economic development operating budgets. And in speaking to the motion, I've been working on healthcare attraction and retention in a number of different roles in the community, and I really believe the strategy and action plan that was presented by our administration is very healthful, and I would really encourage you to vote for it and move it forward.
All right. So the two motions are on the floor, recognizing Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Happy to support these motions. Just have a question for administration. As healthcare is not a typical city function, I'm just wondering if we're diarizing funding that we're putting towards potentially the strategy on this, the staff time, the Masco Medical Center, if we're actually going to start diarizing all the money our community is spending in a bucket that's not normally a municipal or a function, I guess. I'm wondering if there's been some thought or how we'd formalize that. I know we've talked about that with some of our housing initiatives as well, but I feel like we get frustrated when we get told we get downloaded from the provincial government, and yet here we are getting in the provincial government's lane, which I'm totally happy that we're doing, but I would like to see us be recognized for that somehow. So I'm just wondering if we are capturing the expenses we're incurring.
Mr. Burke?
I think as we go into budget deliberations, you can expect administration to highlight areas that are outside traditional municipal responsibilities. So we'll highlight that there.
Okay, thanks for saying that. Budgets was what I was thinking about when I was asking that, so appreciate that.
All right. Seeing no one else in the queue with discussion or debate, I'll call the question. That carries unanimously. Moving on to policy 357 in regards to amendments, the multi-unit residential fee rebate incentive. And this one I will turn over to Mr. Chief Glavin for introduction. Chief McEachern, thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. So for this item, after it was presented at committee for policy amendments to policy 357, which is a multi-use residential fee rebate incentive, we have made a couple of amendments to what we were proposing based on feedback that we had received at committee. So the first one is the addition of duplexes, secondary suites, and semi-detached dwellings into the definition for multi-unit residential, which captures the land uses allowed under this policy. The second one is amendments to Section 5.1 to include a closure date of December 31st, 2025. This was based on recommendations from Council, and it now reads as the intake for the DIG program policy will close when either all allocated funds have been assigned or by December 31st, 2025, whichever occurs first. This intake may also be closed at any time at the discretion of City Council. And the third one is the addition of Section 4.2.1C. Renovations or additions may qualify under this program, where a minimum of one new dwelling unit is added to the property.
All right. So, my apologies. Going back to Councillor Blackmore.
So I will put the motions on the floor for debate. I move that Council approve amendments to Policy 357 as presented, including the addition of a sunset clause with the program ending December 31st, 2025, the addition of secondary suites and duplexes, the removal of the Business Revitalization Grant and Residential Infill Grant, removing the $10,000 maximum and adding definitions for apartment building, mixed-use apartment build, and multi-unit residential. And number 2, direct administration to consolidate all unallocated funding from the Economic Recovery Fund into the Development Grants and Incentives Fund and allocate $1 million to the Municipal Fee Rebate Program, with the remainder to be left unallocated within the DIG program. In speaking to this, this is one of the many steps that this council is taking to encourage increase of residential and multifamily residential within the city. So we really, I really ask my council to support this and get this off the ground and running. Thank you.
All right, so that motion is in order. Open it up for discussion or debate on that first motion, recognizing Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just a couple of questions for administration. Just in the report, it talks about $27,000 was approved through this program so far. How long was it open for that period for the $27,000?
Chief McEachran?
Do we know? I didn't see the report, so. Okay.
I apologize. I'll get that answer for you.
Okay, thank you. And I did have another one. I don't know if this is for Mayor Clayton or maybe our CEO, but one of the things when I read through the DIG program and that we can incentivize commercial and industrial, we were basically told through the MGA we're not allowed to do that with the MGA for multifamily and residential. Have we wrote any letters to the province and asked them why, at a time in Alberta when we're so drastically short residential, that we're prescribing an area that would have been one of our biggest things we could have done to incentivize multifamily?
Currently under Bill 20, it's a consideration that will be in discussion under the regulations of Bill 20 in September.
In September, okay. So this could change come September, that we could possibly update
in the fall, let's say the fall.
Okay, that fall sounds good. And just, if I can, one other question, Mayor Clayton, just we're reducing it to or putting $1 million in this fund. If I understand, there's $1.2 million in the fund now, and there'll be $1 million in it. I guess what I'm looking at probably is amendment when I find out how long this has been open for. It seems like a lot of money to put to one thing, and I'd like to see us set back a little bit more money for a bigger project. So that's why I'm curious about the $27,000 and how long it's been in queue.
So sorry, tell me your question again. Or Chief McEachran, you have an answer now?
I do, thank you. So DIG was open July 2021, and it was until December 30th, 2022.
For a moment. Yeah, I'll be looking to make an amendment. I'll just hear some colleagues first.
Okay, Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Just a question in regards to the report. Attachment B, average building and development fees. So some of the amendments that we're making here today talks about duplexes, single family, and secondary suites amendments to this. But when I look at attachment B, average building and development fees, it has all the types of developments, kind of the structure of the fees we'd be waiving there. But we don't have anything for duplex or single family homes. So what kind of fees would we be waiving for those two types, considering this is leaning into secondary suites?
Chief Glavin?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. They'd be similar but less than the semi-detached, I believe.
So is that $3,000, $3,500? With rezoning, is it $7,000, $6,000?
I don't have the, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I don't have them in front of me, but they'd be less than the semi-detached, but I don't have. The rezoning fees would be the same for all of them. So I think they quoted roughly $4,000 for the rezoning. That would be the same for every single rezoning out there as it's indicated in the current table.
Okay, so then I would just imagine the 3,700 without rezoning and 7,700 with rezoning for duplexes and single family.
Chief Glavin.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Again, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it would be similar, but I believe less than the semi-detached.
Yeah, no, I just think it's important that we have all the information in front of us here, and that's currently not listed as information, but I'm sure we can get it. Thank you.
Mr. Burke.
Just actually back to Councillor Palat's question and just maybe some background into why we had recommended the $1 million. It really was just based on some of just the interest we've had from multifamily developers, and we didn't want that money currently hasn't been utilized. We didn't want that to be a check if we could get a number of projects started this year. It's something we'll definitely evaluate in budget time in fall, and if there was a recalibration, if there hadn't been uptake, but we didn't want that to be an impediment if there were a number of large projects that were eager to go and get into that process here this year. So just want to give that context of why we had selected the $1 million, but of course council can amend that at their pleasure.
All right. So there is a motion on the floor. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just another question for administration. When I look on our inspection fees, maybe it's a typo, but under triplex it says 4,305, but a fourplex says 4,165. I'm just curious. Everything seems to kind of scale, but for some reason we are charging less for a 4-unit than a triplex. Just more out of curiosity.
Chief Glavin.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'll have to follow up on that. Maybe a typo.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of figured that's why I thought I'd ask. So I will make an amendment. I would like to move it that we are reducing the amount to $700,000.
Sorry, we're only on motion 1 right now.
Oh, sorry, they're not all together. My bad. I'll come back in. Thanks.
Yep, no worries. So any other discussion or debate on the first motion in your e-scribe? Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. I'm wondering if administration knows the Aquaterra infrastructure forgiveness, that applies to secondary suites and duplexes, correct?
Yes.
In that case, I think I'm going to be making, I'm looking for a little bit of direction from the chair or advice from administration. I'm not comfortable also offering a municipal incentive to secondary suites and duplexes. And I'm wondering, can I just amend this motion to remove reference to them, or do I need to make a...
No, go for it.
All right. So then I'd move that we remove references to secondary suites and duplexes in this motion. Just speaks to that. I think we're looking for the balancing point here. How much incentive is the right amount of incentive? And we're also talking a little bit and potentially loosening up the rules around secondary suites. And for me, when it's talking about municipal money being contributed, I think the Aquaterra money is probably sufficient for me incentive at this time for secondary suites and duplexes. I want to hold off the municipal fee waivers. I want to allocate that money to larger projects than secondary suites and duplexes. And so for me, I just don't know if it's quite scratching the itch of where I want to be at the balancing point right now. And also I want to save that money for higher density projects that are more efficient for us to service in the long term. So I hope the council support this motion.
So that amendment is in order. And discussion or debate on the amendment, but Councillor Thiessen was in the queue before the amendment, so I don't know if you had comments on that or questions for administration.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the amendment. I was starting to look at this policy as maybe the secondary suite incentive program, because when we add the renovations for existing, that could lead into secondary suites, and now later on we're going to talk third reading on secondary suites. It seems like we're trying to incentivize that. My question was, though, if Councillor Bressie's amendment doesn't pass to administration, how would these changes encourage new builds and/or multifamily like apartments from being built? And the reason why I asked is it's probably easier just to set up a secondary suite in your basement and utilize this program in order to ensure that that's quick and easy and money in the bank. But it does. I don't know if it speaks to creating multifamily apartment dwellings and increasing density besides in our neighborhoods. So So if this wouldn't pass, like how would the changes encourage more multifamily apartment builds?
I would think that it's probably an interpretation, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Burke.
It would be, and if we went back to the committee report, this was one of the options that the recommendation was based on the data, and that duplexes were being built without the incentive, but we did want to provide the option to align it with what Aquaterra was providing, and committee directed to include that. But the original recommendation was not to include duplexes.
Yeah, awesome. That's why we pay attention to the committee meetings, especially when we're not there. I'm in full support of the amendments as presented by Councillor Bressie, and I look forward to the other discussion that happens after.
Councillor Blackmore.
CEO Burke answered my question more or less. I feel, though, that duplexes are secondary suites is often a modification of an existing building, whereas duplexes truly are not a modification, they're a new build. So I'm not sure that I would want to exclude duplexes. So I don't know if I'll support the motion or not. I have to think about it.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'm on the exact same page as Councillor Blackmore. I actually want duplexes included in this. What my fear is that the incentives may not tip the scales enough on some large-scale projects that are, we're talking tens of millions of dollars. So our fees might not tip it, and then we're essentially stagnating a lot of dollars. Once again, to Councillor Palat's point. So I would just as soon leave duplexes in. So if you would take a friendly amendment, if not, I won't support it. Thank you.
Friendly amendment, Councillor Bressie?
Well, am I allowed to split my own motion?
No.
I'll just make a second motion then maybe. But yeah, I'm happy to let this one stand, is just remove secondary suites.
Okay, so friendly amendment saying that the amendment would be for the policy to remove secondary suites from the first motion. Recognizing Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just a question for administration. When I look in the report and it says there's been 287 secondary suites, is that 287 doors or is that 287 secondary suites where I times that by 2? I'm just trying to...
Chief Glavin, do you know if that's 288 buildings that have secondary suites or 288 bedrooms?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I believe that is secondary suites. So additional suites may have more than one bedroom.
Yeah.
Okay. So I appreciate this, the split on that and the semi-detached, but I think if we're really trying to get units in our city, which is what we're trying to do, the quickest way we can get units in our city is secondary suites. I think the documentation kind of shows that 287 of those, 147 semi-detached, 17 triplexes, and 2 eightplexes, and 1 apartment building in 2014. I know we all want apartment buildings, but the reality is what we need is doors. And so with Aquaterra putting that incentive out, I think what we're trying to do is piggyback both incentives together to make those a reality. They're happening in the community now. We're going to discuss it more tonight, later on in the meeting, but I don't know why we'd want to actually stop the one area of the city that's actually giving us doors currently. So I can't support the motion. I think this has been a very proven product in our community, and the numbers don't lie. If we didn't have secondary suites being built in our community, we wouldn't basically have rental suites being built at all. So I think by percolating that, you're actually stopping an ability to try to incentivize what we need the absolute most right now. And piggybacking with Aquaterra might just be enough to move the dial on getting some builders building some product. I also want to remind us that if a secondary suite goes in, I could ask administration exact numbers, but it'll be hypothetical, I guess, but we're probably seeing $5,000 or $6,000 in tax revenue the next year on that building that was a vacant lot that we're getting zero on now. So we're probably getting that money back in less than a year on the taxes it's going to create. So I don't see it as a good use of I think the fund's there to be allocated, so I can't support the motion.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I too will not support the motion based on the same reasons as Councillor Palat. I think with finding out that we didn't receive the federal dollars to build doors, this is the best and easiest way to do so in the time being until we try again to get some additional doors and rentals in there. So I would prefer to see it stay as is and without secondary suites and duplexes taken out. So I won't support the amendment.
Thanks for your comments, Councillor Bosch. Recognizing Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I will also not support this. I think it's important that we have secondary suites developed in our community, and let's have people have places to stay. So I won't be supporting this amendment.
All right. Councillor Bressy to close on your amendment.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Something that I think is beautiful about council is we can look at the same data and come to different conclusions, which I think is actually good having diversity of perspectives. Because Councillor Palat, that's exactly why I don't think we need to add further incentive. It is where we're seeing development happen in the community right now. I'm confident we're going to see secondary suite development happen with a combination of the rules we're likely about to loosen up and also with the Aquaterra incentives. And so for me, I don't know if the incentive is needed to get more secondary suites built. I do think it is needed to get more larger forms of development built. And so that's why I'd like to save the money for others. So totally respect, understand where you're coming from, but I do hope that some of you will support this amendment.
Call the question on the amendment to remove secondary suites.
Councillor Plot opposed.
Councillor Bosch opposed.
And that is defeated. So now, moving back to the amended motion, which would council approve amendments to policy 357 as presented, including the addition of a sunset clause with the program ending December 31st, 2025, the addition of secondary suites and duplexes, the removal of the business revitalization grant and residential infill grant, removing the $10,000 maximum and adding definitions for apartment building, mixed-use apartment build, and multi-unit residential. Discussion or debate on the amended motion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. And that is carried 8-1. Councillor Blackmore.
The second part of the motion is council direct administration to consolidate all unallocated funding from the Economic Recovery Fund into the Development Grants and Incentives Fund and allocate $1 million to the municipal fee rebate program, with the remainder to be left unallocated within the DIG program. And so the amount left unallocated and within the DIG fund, I can ask Chief Whiteway to confirm, but I believe it is 10% of $1 million, so $100,000.
Ms. Whiteway.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with what's there. I'd have to ask Chief McEachran.
Chief McEachran?
I will need to, my apologies, I'll need to confirm that.
All right.
Well, I think right now there's 1.1 million in the DIG program. We're taking $1 million out. So
you said, right? Mr. Burke?
There is 1.2 million. 1.2.
0.2 is what I heard.
Okay, so we're leaving 0.2 in the DIG program. So I would ask council to support this motion, not to support Councillor Palat's amendment.
Okay, so that would put $1 million into the municipal fee rebate program, leaving what's unallocated in the DIG program.
Correct.
Okay, Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Geez, that was a preemptive no. So my motion's just going to be that we, instead of...
You're trying to amend,
my amended motion would be that we allocate $700,000 and not $1 million. That leaves $500,000 still in our program for what could be a potential new project. $200,000 if we had a project come into the core or a special project come in that we wanted to do something over and above isn't going to probably move the needle enough. And I do want to see us get specific on a project. We don't have any other funding. We're going to have a tough budget coming up. So I would like to see some of this money left aside. To put in perspective, we could have 3 80-unit apartments, 100 semi-detached buildings, several duplexes, several triplexes, all still qualify for $700,000. So I don't think we're going to really stop ourselves from hurting ourselves from getting these projects built. We do also can go back in time and say, hey, it's getting so well prescribed, we actually want to add more money to it. My fear is we add the money to it and all the other programs we've done, once it's in there, it's super hard to get it out. I'd rather just keep some of it back and leave $500,000 in our fund that we could actually go after another big shinier project with. So that would be my motion.
Okay. That amendment is in order. Chief McEachran has an update.
Thank you. In addition to that 200,000, there is also leftover from the Economic Recovery Fund, which would bring it up to 400,000. That's available.
Okay. So you're still good with the amendment at 700,000?
Yeah, I think 700 still gives us lots of runway to get this program off the ground, and hearing there's more money gives us more runway to do another project as well.
Okay. Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, I agree. And I'll be supportive of this motion. I think later on we're going to create the runway for these funds to be used. The way I see it, though, and as it writes, I'm not confident that we're going to get anything more than maybe 6 plexes out of this deal. I don't think we're going to get subscribed to $100,000 of fee service waiver for an 80-unit apartment. Heck, I don't even know if we'll get a 40-unit apartment. So I think we'll probably chip away at it, $4,000 at a time, and that's where largely this fund's going to go. So 700,000 seems like a lot. That means we're going to create lots of these other products. But I'm very hopeful that it'll get all eaten up in like 5 or 6 applications, and we'll have 400 to 500 new units available for us, but I don't think that's going to happen, so I can support this.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I don't think I'm going to support this. I like the $1 million total. If somebody does want to bring in a major project, it's going to take some runway to plan it. And what my fear might be is with a smaller pool of money, they'll think by the time I get my application in, there just won't be enough money to cover it. So of course, there could be some conversation around that, but I still like that nice carrot of $1 million dangling there to incentivize and maybe motivate some of those larger projects that, again, they're long shots, but I don't want to make them longer shots. So I'd just as soon leave it at $1 million.
All right. Councillor Thiessen, you're in the queue again. Did you have something else? Okay. Councillor Platt to close? No. All right. So I'll call the question on the amendment to change that amount to 700,000. And that is carried 5-4. Back to the amended motion. So council direct administration to consolidate all unallocated funding for the Economic Recovery Fund into the Development Grants and Incentive Funds and allocate $700,000 to the municipal fee program, with the remainder to be left unallocated within the DIG program. So recognizing this is new dollars, it's a shifting of opportunities. Anyone with discussion or debate on the amended motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Blackmore, any other highlights from your meeting?
Yes, there are a few. As you could tell by the motions that were passed tonight, we did have a delegation from the Grande Prairie Storm, Nicole Menzies, Murray Taves, and Jordan Johnson, who discussed their plans and aspirations for the 23-24 hockey season, and to let us know that the Junior Storm, the Junior A program across the province will go ahead without due punishment from the teams that left the program to go to a different one. Chief McEachran told us that under economic development, administration coordinated 2 physician tours, which included city tours and a meeting with the mayor as part of their ongoing efforts to support the Grande Prairie Regional Hospital's recruitment initiatives. The city, along with the county and MD, will have a booth at the Global Energy Show, and this event brought together industry buyers, sellers, stakeholders, professionals to share knowledge and drive innovation. That show has actually taken place since this meeting. The Work Northwest Alberta website has seen 965 visitors since its soft launch, which will be 4 weeks ago now. Under events and entertainment, Grande Prairie Stampede had their largest year to date through the Metis Energy Center box office, with $280,114 going to the GP Storm Association and $26,543 in box office proceeds retained by the city. A user group open house was hosted at the Beau's May 28th, and the groups that attended were engaged and optimistic about the space. The Grande Prairie Public School District hosted an Indigenous graduation on June 6th at Teresa Sargent Hall for all of their Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit students, which included a brunch, cultural teaching, and the ceremony. Canada Day Entertainment has been announced. The event will be headlined by the Dorina Harvey Band, with support from Northbloods and Mandy Ray. Travel Alberta has awarded Grande Prairie North Winter Festival with a $50,000 grant for January 2025, and upcoming events include the Grand Gathering, which was on Saturday, the Grand Powwow, which will take place this coming weekend, Charles Spencer High School graduation on June 26th, Canada Day July 1st, the Grand Con Comic Con July 10th to 12th, Rotary Rib Fest July 19th to the 21st, Heritage Day August 3rd, Storm Main Camp August 23 to 25, and Experience GP August 30th. And the Street Performers Festival is not in this list, and it should be. So what are the dates for that, Councillor Bosch?
Councillor Bosch?
July 19th to 21st.
Perfect, thank you. And that concludes my report.
All right, thanks for that, Councillor Blackmore. Moving on to the Operational Services Committee meeting held June 11th. And I will turn that one over to Councillor Blackmore.
I would move that Council adopt the minutes of the Operational Services Committee meeting held June 11th as presented.
Perfect. Thanks for that motion. Seeing no one in the queue with discussion or debate, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Any highlights from that meeting, Councillor Blackmore?
I don't know if I've ever mentioned how much I hate iPads. For the service area update, we learned that engineering have the following tenders posted: storm pipe and outfall rehabilitation, traffic signals rehabilitation, and road rehabilitation program phase 4. And tenders have closed on storm drainage and outfall repair and sidewalk rehabilitation phase 2. Under transit, bus stop improvements continue with 15 new garbage cans being installed and schedule holders in progress. The heated shelters have arrived and will be installed by the end of June, and relocation of an existing shelter near Home Depot to the stop across the street from Winners is scheduled and is probably underway as we speak. Under Parks and Environment, flower planting and watering operations continue across the city, and Transportation Administration has assisted in traffic control for the painting of the Pride and Indigenous crosswalks. Preparations are underway for the powwow and the Canada Day parades. And that concludes my report, Mayor Clayton.
All right. Thanks for that, Councillor Blackmore. Moving on to the Financial Administrative Committee meeting held on June 11th. Turn that one over to Councillor Palat for introduction.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I would just make a motion that Council adopt the minutes of the Financial and Administrative Services Committee meeting held June 11 as presented.
That motion is in order. I'll call the question. That carries unanimously. Any highlights for your meeting, Councillor Platt?
Yeah, we had a fairly light agenda, but we did have some service area updates from Chief Whiteway. An assessment and taxation administration will be in Mission Heights currently, completing inspections of homes to ensure records are up to date. Commercial appeals will begin next week, and taxes are due June 28th. Finance work continues with departments on budget activities, and as well, Council's been well aware of. Council's been getting regular updates. So I appreciate the work going in earlier this year than normal on budget updates as well. Procurement currently has 7 bids on the market with a few more to be posted over the next few weeks. And Gov Deals is still very active with all the bikes from the spring auction are now sold. And with GIS and ITS, the summer engineering program has seen about 40% of the new PCs deployed to departments with a projected completion of the end of August. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Plott. Moving on to item 8.5, the Strategy and Communication meeting, also held June 11th. I'll turn it over to Councillor O'Toole for introduction.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I move that Council adopt the minutes of the Strategy and Communication Services Committee meeting held June 11th as presented.
Perfect. That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call a question. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. Councillor O'Toole, you had one item of business today.
Yes, I move that Council give first reading to Bylaw C-1469, being a general appeal board bylaw.
So that motion is in order. This is first reading. No discussion or debate on first reading. So I'll call the question. Please vote. That carries unanimously. Councillor O'Toole.
I move that Council give second reading to Bylaw C-1469.
So that motion is in order. Opportunity for questions for administration. Recognizing Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So I don't have questions, but I did want to speak to it.
Go for it.
I do want to thank administration for the work that's gone into this. I know that it was a significant undertaking, and I hope council supports it. For me, having one appeal board that hears most of our hearings is a very beneficial thing for 2 reasons. Number one, we appoint residents to these appeal boards, and we invest money in training some of them in the rules of procedural fairness and natural justice, but not necessarily all of them. And this way we'll make sure that all residents who serve on our appeal boards have the appropriate training. Just as important for that is sometimes we train them, and because there is nothing that comes through their board, they don't sit on hearings very often, if ever. So that training gets wasted and they don't have an opportunity to practice the craft of running a good hearing. So make sure that we've got the same residents who are getting multiple times to sit on hearings. I think will increase the quality of those hearings. I'm also really excited to get us politicians off of hearings. I think it's just a part of our democratic society as politicians set the policies, but we don't apply them. I think that you don't want political lenses coming into administrative tribunals and administrative decisions. And so I'm excited for this bylaw to be before us, and I hope we support it.
Thanks for your comments. Recognizing Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Bressie. I'm looking forward to not being on one of those committees. Thank you.
Councillor Blackmore.
I do have a question for Chief McEachern. I'm wondering, because we're taking several committees, several appeal boards, and kind of amalgamating them, what will happen with people who are serving on those committees, and if there will be a motion to reorganize at a later date coming forward, or how do you see that rolling out?
Chief McEachern, rather.
Thank you, through the mayor. The majority of these boards and committees that we're talking about, we do have some public members on it. So in particular, to be the SDAB has public members on it, and the intent is to reach out to them and see if they have a desire to be on this general appeal board. So then, as Councillor Bressie mentioned, they will have more opportunity to actually serve on a board. For the rest of them, I'm not aware what that impact would be, but with the city clerk, we can take a look at that.
All right. Seeing no one else in the queue, I'll call the question on second reading. Carries unanimously. Councillor O'Toole.
All right. I move that Council have third reading of Bylaw C-1496 or 69 at this meeting.
The motion is in order. In order for us to have third reading here tonight, this motion must pass unanimously. Seeing no one in the queue with discussion or debate, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I move that council give third reading to bylaw C-1469 being the General Appeal Board bylaw.
So that motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question on third reading of bylaw C-1469.
The letters got smaller there for a while.
And that carries unanimously. Any highlights for your meeting, Councillor O'Toole?
Yes, we have a couple of highlights I'll just bring up. And one of them is our, hang on here. One of them is our census. Now we're very close to getting about 90%, and I encourage anyone in the Grande Prairie municipality, if you haven't got your census notice, phone 311 and ask why that is, and you can fill that out. With that census, it guarantees us a set amount of money for grants that are given by the provincial government at this point in time. So it's not costing you any money, it's saving us money. If we can save money, we can not have a higher tax. And that's the one I'd like to push through today.
That's your report?
We've got one other item, if you would like. Corporate communication. Recent announcements include construction work updates, open applications for sidewalk patio, fire restriction updates, and Canada Day updates, and seasonal facility, the pool updates, and the residential satisfaction survey wrapped up. Administration exceeded the expectation on volunteer survey submissions with over 600 submissions recorded. And as well, human resources, the Grande Prairie Museum now has an ethnic minority mannequin that will be utilized in our exhibits, which is a great addition to demonstration of the commitment and inclusion and belonging. And with that, we have thank you to the following Canada Day sponsors. Synovus, they are looking after the Kids Zone, Pomeroy Hotel, the fireworks this year. Co-op is looking after the cakes, and Paramount Resources, Carnival Rides and Games. Through marketing efforts, the city has reached 95,000 accounts on Instagram, and this is a 295% increase from the previous month. And with that, that is my report.
All right, thanks for your report. I had a question for Chief McEachran in regards to the census. For those who may be watching and weren't aware, the census, as Councillor O'Toole mentioned, is a great opportunity for us to collect information, particularly in demographics. So when we are planning, we want to know where seniors live, we want to know where young families live. That helps us in many areas such as busing routes, our social services. It also helps with infrastructure planning, and that information is essential for future planning. As mentioned, it also gives us more accurate numbers when we're applying for grant funding from the provincial government or federal government. And so it also is great data for economic development when organizations and companies are looking to move to Grande Prairie and they want to know additional information from us. The census is how we gather that. So I just had a question, Chief McEachran. Currently, how is it going? I know the report was last week, but if you have any additional information, and with that, I had a couple other additions, but if you could just update us how it's looking, are we getting close, and how much longer is the census open for people to participate?
Thank you very much, Mayor. As mentioned, we have until June 30th to finish the counting for the census, and we're required to have 90% completion rate. So there's approximately 28,000 dwellings in Grande Prairie to count. To date, we've counted 17,000 of those, which means we have approximately 11,000 dwellings to go. That's through a number of efforts being where we had placed individual pins with each of the dwellings. We're now following up with those that have not completed their census online, and so we are doing door knocking in areas to try to complete those. And also through Access GP, individuals calling in to get their individual pins, etc. So currently, we, with just under 2 weeks to go, we have a 61% completion rate. Right now, we have about 8,200 dwellings still to complete, as I said, in just under 2 weeks.
Perfect. So I brought this for your information. This is what originally would have been hung on your door, and on the back there's a unique pin that's identified specifically for your house. Since then, if you've completed it, the workers who are contract workers, who are people from our community who are taking a part-time job to potentially go knock on doors, we strongly encourage you to be polite to those people, be receptive to those people. There have been, of course, with many times when people go into somebody's yard, there's dogs, there's situations that aren't friendly, but this information is extremely important to the city. So if you haven't filled out your first one, and we come and knock, somebody comes and knocks on your door, you'll see this one, this bright yellow one saying, "Sorry, we missed you." You can go on to cityofgp.com/census, where you'll get a unique PIN. If you'd rather just call 311. We'll give you that unique PIN so that we can collect that data by the end of June. So thank you to the workers that are going to those 11,000 houses that are still left. Thank you to everyone who has completed their census. It's extremely important information as we plan growth in our city and plan infrastructure changes and amenities, upgrades for transportation, etc. So I just encourage, if you're one of those 11,000 houses, please call us at 311 or go on to citygp.com/census, get your PIN, your ID number, and enter that information. Thank you for your, Chief McEachran, something else to add?
Just one additional point on that as well is there is still one remaining $500 gas grocery gift card available to win for anyone who completes their census before midnight tonight.
Okay, so midnight tonight, get your census information in and you could win $500 of free gas.
And it only takes less than a minute.
Yeah, it's extremely easy, you bet. All right, thank you for your report, Councillor O'Toole. Moving on to item 8.6, Council Committee of the Whole. That meeting was held June 12th in regards to community group funding. I will turn this one over to Chief Lemieux for a brief introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So under Community Group Enhancement Funding, administration is making 3 recommendations. So the approved budget for the 2025 Community Group Enhancement Funding is $60,000. That's what's approved in the budget. Your report in Table 1 shows that we received requests totaling $150,000. Of those, we're recommending that we allocate the $60,000 to the groups listed in Table 1. The second item is that during the 2024 budget deliberations, an additional $27,500 was approved to supplement existing groups funded through community group funding. So that's in Table 2. So we had 5 applicants, and we are recommending, there's a recommended allocation in terms of how the $27,500 should be spent. And for the sport hosting grant, we still have $24,000 available in that account, and we're recommending 2 groups as listed in Table 3, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thanks for the introduction. So just a reminder to Council, the original $60,000 for community group enhancement funding was approved at the last budget. Applications came in significantly higher. The $6,000 amount for sport hosting also approved at the budget. Then there was a top-up of $27,500, which we received just over $60,000 of applications for. So those were discussed at the most recent Council Committee of the Whole. Now there's some business arising, and I'll recognize Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. First off, I would like to move Council adopt the minutes of the Council Committee of the Whole meeting held June 12th as presented.
Perfect. That motion is in order. I will call the question. Please vote. That carries unanimously. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I would like to move council approve, first off, the 2025 Community Group Enhancement Funding as presented in Table 1. 2, the 2024 supplemental increases as presented in Table 2. And finally, number 3, sport hosting grants as presented in Table 3. And just to speak to some of this, we've got so many community groups doing wonderful work here in the community. So the groups in Table 1, some of them are a little lower profile, and we learned that in committee. And so thanks to administration for educating council on the good work that these groups do and bringing us up to date so that we can move forward. I also just want to thank my council colleagues at Budget. I fought to get that extra 27.5. As I did the math, I felt that we were shortchanging some of the groups that we were funding. And the math added up to about 27.5. So it's great to see that these guys get some top up. And also sport hosting grants. This is just part of our sport tourism strategy. And these aren't big dollars, but every little bit helps, and we build community and quality of life through some of these events. So encourage my council colleagues to support this.
Perfect. Thanks for those motions. They are all in order. Recognizing Councillor Blackmore.
Mayor Clayton, I don't really know how best to handle this, but while I will support the motion, I also feel that council needs to have a discussion and a strategy coming up for the fall budget sessions. We have a lot of organizations applying for relatively small pots of money. And my concern is that in the community, we are oversaturating that so that in fact, we are giving more community groups money than the result is they get far less money than they need, so they're not able to actually do the jobs that we're asking them to do with funds that are limited and not available to them. So I feel that while I will support this motion today because I know we do have this money in place, coming in the future, those requests are going to continue to grow and the pot of money is not growing. So what is this council going to do to strategize so that we are making best use of what money we do have? And are we to prevent ourselves from over-diluting it in the community? So I don't know how you would like to address that as a separate motion or just a request to administration to provide future information, or?
I would suggest that we deal with the business and then I'll come back to you and then potentially direct administration to have a discussion around council strategic priorities aligning with community group funding. And so if you're okay, we'll come back. I'll come right back to you. Okay. Any other discussion or debate on the motions that are currently in your e-scribe? The community group funding as presented in Table 1, the supplemental increases in Table 2, and the sport hosting grants in Table 3. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question on that. And that carries unanimously. Now going back to Councillor Blackmore, I don't know if that helped you at all, sort of a suggestion, but maybe we can work on this together.
It does help me. So I would move that administration support council through a strategic plan to examine community funding. And my concern is I know that we've had organizations who've been in business in Grande Prairie for a really long time, and they do tremendously good work. And their funding from us has become less and less, simply because the demands on that pot of money have become more and more. And so I would rather fund less agencies better than more agencies with less money. So I think that as we continue to move forward into a budget that we know is not going to be an easy budget session, I think council needs to have it organized in our own minds how we're going to approach this. So I would ask administration to help council build a strategy through these next coming months. And I'll look to CEO Burke if that...
I got a nod from him, so you're good. Okay. Thanks for that motion, Councillor Blackmore. Recognizing Councillor Bosch.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if there's somebody from administration that just could clarify at this point in time. Does administration already align their matrices to these organizations that are asking for money. And so I suspect it will not be a difficult task to come up with this strategy, or am I wrong?
Ms. Bieberdorf, welcome back.
Thank you, through the mayor. We do request their alignment with council strategic priorities on all of their application forms, so they all have to answer that question. I would say that most of them will find a way to connect to the strategy in some way, because they're all doing work in the community.
Yeah, I suspected that, because you can chat GPT your way to almost anything. Thank you.
All right. I have no one else in the queue, so I'll call the question on Councillor Blackmore's motion. And that carries 8-1. So moving on, there are no items of correspondence, no delegation business, no notices of motions rather, and we will now move into unfinished business. Item 12.1 is in regards to Bylaw C-1260-180. I'll wait for Ms. Downing to get set up, as she will be presenting information on proposed backyard suites and the additional information that council had requested come prior to third reading. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Downing, no rush. Just take your time, get set up. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm here today to talk about additional information about backyard suites. On June 3rd, Council directed administration to bring back further information regarding garage and garden suites before third reading of this bylaw. Currently, garage suites are allowed in our bylaw, and these suites are either built above or attached to a garage. However, internal parking spots are required. What the proposed bylaw does is allow for backyard suites, which are commonly termed garden suites, and it introduces suites that do not require internal parking spots. So currently and proposed, there's no change to this. They are allowed in all density residential districts, all low density residential districts. The minimum lot size that they could be built on is 12.2 meters or 40 feet. And they are only allowed on a lot with a single detached dwelling. So currently and proposed, there's no change to how they would be handled. They are discretionary, which means that we are required to notify neighbors twice, once when the application comes in, and then again after it's either approved or refused. And there's an opportunity for neighbors to appeal the decision. As well, the discretion of the application has, we can use the impacts of adjacent neighborhoods to decide on how the application is done. So if the neighbors are concerned about shadowing on their properties, we can work with the applicant to propose the buildings such that those are mitigated and windows aren't facing yards, etc. We can also refuse the application if it doesn't conform with the neighborhood. Whereas if it was a permitted use, we'd be obligated to approve it if it met the bylaw. The maximum building height. So in the current bylaw, it's 8.5 meters to the eaves, which is typically around 10 meters or 28 feet to the roof pitch. This would be a maximum height. What's being proposed is 7.6 meters, which is 25 feet overall to the peak of the roof, which still allows a two-story development. Currently, there's one per bedroom in the suite. So if you had a two-bedroom suite, you would require 4 parking stalls for the property, 2 for the house and 2 for the suite. What's being proposed is 1 for a 2-bedroom or 1 bedroom, and it's important to point out that the maximum is 2 bedrooms, so the maximum number of parking spots would be 3. So the building size is determined in 2 ways, one by the floor area and the other by the lot coverage. So first for the floor area, currently we don't have a maximum floor area, and what's being proposed is that the total maximum floor area would be 130 meters squared, including the garage spaces. And the maximum on the second story is 60 meters squared. So there's a few examples of how that can be done here. A single story being 130 meters squared, or a two-story with perhaps 70 meters on the bottom and 60 meters squared on the upper floor. Lot coverage, currently there is no maximum site coverage for what we allow for a garage suite. And what's being proposed is a maximum site coverage of 20% for the garage or for the backyard suite. And the total site coverage cannot exceed that of the applicable land use district, which is typically 45%. I have a few examples here. This would be a 70 meter square foot suite in a backyard. And this would be a 130 meter squared suite in a backyard. So I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your report. Recognizing Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Thank you for this. I know I'm the one who made you do all this, but my question is, the 130, is that allowable or not allowable versus the 70?
Ms. Downing?
The last image.
Thank you, through the mayor. That's the maximum allowed, but it would be on one story. It's 130 meters squared total.
Okay.
And if that was over two stories, then it would be 70 on the bottom and 60 above it. But if it was on one story, and the lot coverage would have to come into play there. It would have to be a substantially large lot where 130 meters squared is only 20% of the lot.
Yeah, in that image, it would not be 20% on the lot.
That image is done correctly. It did.
Oh, it is? That's
work.
20%?
Yeah, I have the 19%
okay.
there. And the
total
the entire
lot
size
okay.
is the yard.
Okay.
My image is out.
The reason I did ask for this is because I have significant concerns with backyard suites. I'm good with the garage suites. I'm good with suites going into existing buildings or existing homes. And I'm good with increasing the amount. This one, though, it is concerning to me. I am concerned about the aesthetics of what a backyard suite would look like. The impacts, you know, what's beautiful to one person might not be beautiful to the next. And I do worry about eyesores in the community, and it impacts the quality of life for the people who do buy their forever home, perhaps, or, you know, the biggest purchase of their life. So I'm doing all of my explaining, but I do have a motion with this. But
okay, so hold your motion.
Okay.
Right now this question's on this report.
Okay.
Okay. Are you good for questions on the report?
Am I good for question? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. My concern is similar to what Councillor Bosch is. If there's no laneway and you have a backyard garden suite, it almost takes up the whole lot, and it's not subdividable. Am I not correct?
Downing?
Thank you, through the mayor. That's correct. You cannot subdivide it out of the property.
Yeah, and that your parking would be on the street or in the driveway of the main house.
Ms. Downing?
Yes, that would. If there was no lane, then the parking would need to be arranged in the front of the house and couldn't be blocking the parking for the main dwelling.
Yeah. This gives me a lot of concerns. A number of people have communicated with me saying they don't want their neighborhood to be changed in the character that they have in it. And I think these garden suites has an opportunity to not support that characteristic of a wonderful neighborhood. So I won't be supporting this. And if you're ready for a motion.
Nope. We're going to go through all the questions.
Okay, fine.
Just like I told Councillor Bosch, now I'll tell you. Anyone else wants to know? We're not ready for motions. I just want to clarify, it might help some of the other conversations. If council were to remove this element from the amendments to the land use bylaw, it would remain as is, which would allow for garage suites, which do require parking on the main floor. Let's call it the main floor. Is that correct, Ms. Downing?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
Ms. Downing, when I read this, I interpret this as the proposed bylaw changes are, in fact, more restrictive in the neighborhood than the garage suites, because the garage suites are permitted use, whereas the change going forward would make backyard suites, whether they're garage suites or garden suites, discretionary. So there would be a significantly more work a builder would have to do in order to get approvals to build his unit. Is that not correct?
Ms. Downing.
No, that's not correct. Currently, they're discretionary, and there is no change being proposed. So currently in the bylaw, garage suites are a discretionary use. And the backyard suites would also be a discretionary use.
Okay, that's my misinterpretation then, because the last time I asked this question, I was told no, garage suites are permitted. So, but my other question is, so if I wanted to build a suite in my yard, in my neighborhood, what steps would take place to ensure that I was building a nice looking building rather than, dragging in a granary from a farm and converting it? I don't know. Because that, I think, is where people's concerns lie, is they're worried that their neighbors is going to put up not very aesthetically pleasing shack, and it will detract from their property values. I believe that we have opportunities to ensure that doesn't happen.
Ms. Downing.
Thank you. So the first step was we would receive the application and look at it ourselves, and then it would be circulated to all of the adjacent property owners, and they would have an opportunity to provide comments to the city, and then we would address those comments and work with the applicant on the slope of the roof, the building materials, the placement of windows, and everything about their development. And if approved, it would then be, letters would go out to the adjacent residents again. And before the construction could start, there's a 21-day appeal period. And if any of those neighbors object to the development, an appeal would take place before they would be able to start construction of their development. So there would be a incentive to work with your neighbors to build something that, is conforming to the neighborhood.
So in my opinion, we have done a lot of work to make sure that people's concerns are not going to come to fruition.
Ms. Downing?
Thank you, through the mayor. I believe that would be the case if it was a discretionary use and we had that opportunity. To date, in the last 10 years since we've allowed garage suites, we've only seen 3. So we don't have a lot of experience with this type of development in the community.
Thank you.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I was just doing some math here, and I'm trying to put this into real world perspective. So the first house that I owned here in Grande Prairie was up in Mount View on a very large lot, 3-bedroom home, 990 square feet. Now, in theory, I could put a 130 square meter suite in the backyard. Going to Google, it tells me that's 1,399 square foot. So it'd be 400 square feet bigger than my home, but because it's one of these established lots, I'm thinking it would probably fit. So my question was a smaller maximum considered? Basically, just trying to put it in context with the neighborhood and with the homes.
Ms. Downing?
Thank you, through the mayor. That could be a council directive to lower the maximum size. I have seen in other municipalities that it has to be smaller than the primary dwelling on the property. That's what Edmonton's bylaw says. So there are options for council to consider.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, and we'll probably take advantage of that.
Right. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Same question that Councillor Berg had. I'm probably struggling with a 1,300 square foot home going in a backyard somewhere. So I'm just something that I would be probably happy to see an amendment come forward as well. I'm just curious if you can explain to me, Councillor Blackmore was asking about how we protect that, but I haven't seen a lot of the restrictive covenants of an older area, but in a Highland Park, do we really have any teeth if somebody says, I want to build a box with 4 walls, nothing special, and some windows and doors? Like, do we really have any teeth to go against covenants? I'm just wondering how we could enforce that. I guess I'm curious. I appreciate new areas, and a lot of areas have covenants that are very specific of what you can build. I just don't know how we can get prescriptive if there's not covenants in an area. Maybe
Other than area structure plans have design standards in some neighborhoods.
a little bit, yeah. How comfortable are we that we could actually properly govern back these suites going in some areas of town that are older? Because I think the concern for a lot of folks is what happens to these older areas of town that have the bigger mature yards. The newer areas probably are going to have more secondary suites and the odd lot that would fit. But in these older areas, how comfortable are we that we actually could have the teeth to go in and say that's not a very aesthetically pleasing looking unit you're going to build right to the development person at the time before the neighbors come in with pitchforks and say we don't like the looks of that? Like how would we be able to be preemptive on that? I'm still need to be walked through that a bit more.
Ms. Downing.
Thank you, through the mayor. So with a discretionary use, we have the ability to dictate what we want to see for the development. Where it comes into play would be at the appeal. So if we refuse something, that applicant also has a right to appeal. And if they're in front of the appeal board and the appeal board doesn't believe that our reasons for refusing it are good enough, then possibly, the appeal board could overturn the city's decision. An area redevelopment plan really does help with that. So if the area redevelopment plan for, say, Hillside or College Park has architectural guidelines in it that says this is the type of development we want to see in the neighborhood, at an appeal you would be much more successful because you have more teeth to protect that development. Okay. Restrictive covenants, I think Joe spoke to last time, the city has nothing to do with. Developers put those on homes and properties, and it becomes a civil matter between property owners to uphold covenants.
No, I pray that helps a little bit. I guess I'd be concerned in the areas that we don't necessarily have redevelopment plans in yet, that we'd get into that weird arbitration potential spot of a developer thinking they're building a nice looking product. People come in and appeal it. They don't like the color. They don't like the pitches. They don't like whatever on it. And then we're in this limbo spot. So I got to give this some more thought, but I'm definitely not in support of the size. But I do want to thank administration for this because as Councillor Blackmore also mentioned, I do feel in some ways we've made it a little bit more prescriptive and put some more teeth to this. So I think there's some really good things with this as well.
So just to clarify, if I recall correctly, there's about half a dozen area redevelopment plans currently in the city. And with Highland Park does not have one. I looked that up last week. There's 6 that come to mind. There could be more. But so between that and potentially any neighborhood covenants that are in place, those would be the sort of triggers for meeting any covenants or design standards, and that's really it, correct?
Oh, well, the bylaw itself speaks to the fact that the discretion is based on the aesthetics of the property.
Okay, perfect.
And then there are, depending on the zoning.
But your interpretation of what looks nice and someone else's interpretation of what looks nice could be different. If there's not an area redevelopment plan or covenants in place, it's left to interpretation, correct?
Correct.
Right. Recognizing Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and my understanding of SDABs is they tend to side on minimal aesthetics and not give a lot of weight to that. So it's, I've got an MGA question. I know that if we defeat this bylaw period, there's a cooling off period before we can reconsider it. But if council did want to remove backyard suites from this bylaw today, but still pass the bylaw, is there a cooling off period we'd have to follow before we can reconsider backyard suites?
I'll turn that over to our Director of Legislative Services to answer. My understanding is no, but I will just clarify that.
Through the mayor, no, there wouldn't be a cooling off period for that.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, so I think I've shown my cards, but for me, I'm very open to the idea of backyard suites. In fact, it's something we've talked about at our property. It could be a great place to put the kids when they're in college and then to move when we're old. And I think there's circumstances where they really could work, but I'm really worried about having basically 2 full-blown houses on a property. So I just think more work needs to be done on this. So appreciate the information, appreciate the conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we go with this in a few minutes.
All right, recognizing Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that there are places where you just physically can't do it because the fences join. There's no back alley to get heavy equipment in, trusses and stuff like that. So there is going to be limitations on what you can do in certain areas. Concrete truck, that kind of stuff. So you may be alienated out without even trying too hard. So I just want to bring that up.
Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, so just a question. Thanks for all the work that you put into this, Ms. Downing. Appreciate it very much. Adding the backyard suite in, let's say it was at 130 meters squared, and then we have those two properties. Essentially, that's like subdividing a property before we subdivide a property by allowing two properties on one. Am I correct in a sense? Without doing the subdivision process.
Thank you.
Downing.
Through the mayor, the subdivision would require a separate utilities to both dwellings, and that wouldn't be possible with this type of arrangement. So they would never be able to be subdivided.
Okay, so now I did hear of, I have family members. I had a couple residents from Kelowna who have since moved here, talking about the challenges that they experienced, and my family, that their friends experienced, when they had these garden suites in their backyard. So essentially what it did is it increased the overall assessment of the land value and the two properties that were on it. And then they had almost an impossible time of being able to sell the properties on one property until they actually went to the city of Kelowna and asked for it to be subdivided into smaller lots, which obviously created some kind of its own consternation with their administration. And I'm trying to avoid that there. The other concern that I have is with the two-story garden suite. I trust that our administration will probably use every discretion possible to ensure that the neighbors have privacy, but sometimes in order to meet the requirements, you need certain windows on certain sides, and sometimes you're surrounded by three properties, and so somebody's not getting the privacy in their backyard that they would. How can we mitigate this potential problem between neighbors when one decides to build a two-story garden suite if we pass this, and then one of the three neighbors around them maybe is upset over their privacy? Would they be forced then to come in and appeal the development based off of their own privacy? What would be that process?
Thank you. Through the mayor, their first opportunity would be when they're first circulated to raise any objections to it or come up with alternatives to how it could better suit their property. And then their second opportunity would be, if it was approved, to appeal it at the SDAB.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Blackmore.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I just have one other area that I would like you to help me out with. So if I were to build a two-story, two-suite, secondary garden suite, so would that mean I would be able to have a total of 4 bedrooms, or I would still only be able to have a maximum of 2 bedrooms?
Ms. Downing?
Thank you. You can only have one garden suite or secondary suite in addition to the primary suite on the property. So you couldn't do 2 suites in the backyard.
So the only way to do 2 stories would be a garage and a suite.
It would still be a 2-bedroom dwelling, but it is potentially possible that you could do a 2-story dwelling on 2 levels. But it would be 1 dwelling unit. And
I too feel that 130 square meters is a lot of floor space for a secondary suite. That's over 1,000 square feet. How much? 1,400. I had 1,300 in my converter, but the first house that my husband and I bought was 980 square feet, and it was a 3-bedroom house, and it was not cramped. So, just to give a perspective.
All right, Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks. It was only about a year ago that we approved the community of East Haven, and one of the attractivenesses features in the proposal was that they could put secondary suites in their backyard and even in some cases over the garage. I don't want to cause any issues for those developers that came here in good faith, and we approved that in good faith. So would any changes in here affect what we've told East Haven?
Ms. Downing.
Thank you, through the mayor. Not that I'm aware of. There is possibly a representative from UDI that would be able to speak to that, but my understanding is that UDI doesn't have a position on the garden suite or garage suite issue and is comfortable with the secondary suites.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So, Council, in our bylaws, it does allow an opportunity for amendments before third reading. Now would be that opportunity for amendments prior to third reading, recognizing Councillor Bosch. That would include deletions or amendments.
Thank you. I would like to move that the backyard suites be removed from bylaw C-1260-180. And to speak to that, I don't think we're on the same page as setting out a bylaw at this point in time. I think perhaps we need to look at lot size. Perhaps we need to look at maximum size of a garden suite. Perhaps we just need to think about this a little bit more. And as I said previously, I'm fine with garage suites. I'm fine with in-home suites. And I'm fine with additional numbers of suites in an area. I think we're doing our part to increase accessibility for people to rent. This other stuff is a little more sensitive to me because in speaking with residents, some have experience where this came out and all of a sudden it backfired in some sense, where you get people who don't build to the aesthetics of the neighborhood. You impact the quality of life to your neighbors. And as I said, this is the biggest purchase of their lives. That is nothing to take not seriously. And then there's people who will take advantage of it because it's a second source of income. And to them, maybe aesthetics of the area or their neighbors don't matter. Are most people like that? Probably not. But when you're the one who's the neighbor of someone who would like to build, something to make money, then, money does that to people. I don't know. This, to me, is not as simple as a she shed or a playhouse. It is significantly larger, particularly if you're going into two-story. Doing that to your neighbor, I think, has some significant implications. And so for those reasons, I just think that we need to pull back on that one part of this bylaw. As I said, I'm fine with the rest and letting people move into suites quickly. We have $700,000 that and Aquaterra funds. So I don't believe that the 3 garage suites that we had in the past will continue to be that smaller number. I think people will take advantage of the new dollars that are up on the table and the availability of the increase of suites in areas. So I hope my council will support this and just take a bit of a backseat to the one component of this bylaw.
Right, so your motion is in order to remove backyard suites from proposed bylaw C-1260-180, which, a reminder to council, would mean garage suites would remain in the bylaw as a discretionary option. I will open it up for discussion or debate on the amendment. Sorry, no, I will open it up for a discussion or debate on the third reading. So I'm going to, actually, we will need a motion to have third reading, and then we can debate the amendment, or would you like to just debate the amendment first? All right, so discussion or debate on the amendment to remove the backyard suites. Recognizing Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. And the question for Councillor Bosch on her amendment. Are you hoping that this comes back to council in the future around backyard suites, or are you just hoping to kill it altogether?
I think I would like to see this bylaw move forward without this component so that we can get people started on building secondary suites and garage suites. I think that is important in our community. And I think at some point, I'd like to see it come back with specifics, whether it be lot size, whether it be, developers who have an entire area that they wish to put garden suites in. That's fine. I'm game for that, but it has to be appropriate to what our community wants to. So, yes, in the future, but I'd like to see this move without it in there right now, and move forward with more investigation and a better plan, I think, for me.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you. I will be voting in favor of this amendment. I also am in support of secondary suites. All the other parts of the plan, I am in support of it. This one bothers me because people have contacted me saying, I don't want somebody in my backyard. If they have lane access, go ahead, build yourself a garage suite, and if you have lane access, don't have an issue with that. But I do have an issue with the size and where it is, so I think I'd like it killed on this motion so we can move ahead and start building secondary suites.
Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, I'll be in support of this motion as well. I'm sitting here trying to think about amendments I'd make because I like the idea of the backyard suites, but I just don't think the community is ready for that. The complaints I've had about it, I had a hard time explaining some of it to people because it's relatively new to us as well. I think secondary suites are fairly well known in the community. You can drive by them, you can see them, they're all over the place. So I think people can get their head around that. I would want to see this come back fairly soon though. So I guess my question for administration, if this motion were to pass and we wouldn't do this, do you want to see us having a subsequent motion about bringing back further information to the appropriate standing committee, or what would be the process? That's the process? Okay. So happy to look at making a motion after that. I think we should appreciate this motion and you would be happy to get further information to keep the ball rolling on it. I also think this is probably another engagement strategy than what we currently had, because I think this is a different kind of engagement than secondary suites.
All right. Councillor Blackmore. Don't answer, it's unknown. Spam. Go ahead, Councillor Blackmore.
An unknown caller aside, my understanding from Councillor Bosch's motion, and I'm asking for confirmation, is that garage suites will remain in the bylaw because they're currently there and we're taking out garden suites. To me, that is not logical because garden suites are less of an imposition height-wise than the current bylaw standards for a garage suite. So if you're worried about a looming structure in your neighbor's backyard, it would make more sense to remove garden suites and garage suites from the bylaw at this time. It's making it hard for me to support the motion because I'm not sure that taking garage suites or garden suites out at this time is really sufficient. Either, if we've only had 3 garage suites in 10 years, would it not make more sense to remove them from the bylaw too, particularly as we're asking administration to come back at a later time with different policies around garden suites?
So you are accurate. They will remain there if this is amended. However, they're discretionary, and so I don't know if that provides you any comfort, but they are discretionary.
I'm not comforted, no.
Okay, so if you want to, yeah, that's the current amendment. You could ask Councillor Bosch for a friendly amendment to her, a friendly addition to her amendment.
Councillor Bosch, would you think about removing garage suites from the bylaw at this time as well?
Councillor Blackmore, I appreciate your comments. I will not, and only because when you're talking about a garage suite, to me, you already have access and parking into that garage suite. You're not, impacting front street parking, and typically when you have a garage, particularly in the areas where you can put a suite on top, there seems to be room for it. And being that it's discretionary, if for some reason it is, out to lunch, our administration will say, hey, no, you can't. It doesn't make sense to put a secondary suite on top of your garage. But I think overall, garage suites have been successful in many cities. So I would like to stick with this motion. Sorry.
And I would also suggest, Councillor Blackmore, if you're looking to add a different amendment to the existing bylaw, that's something we could bring up in an appropriate standing committee, because there probably should be consultation on that. As the original amendments were consulted on, we never consulted the community on removing garage suites in their entirety. And so it may be a discussion at a future standing committee meeting. Okay. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. No, I will support this motion wholeheartedly. And I look forward to the subsequent motion coming back for garden suites. I think this is a case of we're working with the best of intentions, but like Councillor Boss said, we maybe need a little bit more information in order to guide us to make the right decisions for our people, especially in our larger lot neighborhoods, the older ones typically. I think Avondale, Swanhaven, Mount View, Highland Park, those ones especially. The garage suites, I have no issue with the garage suites. In fact, most garage suites are street facing. What we're talking about garden suites, bless you, in garden suites there, is that they have windows that could face any side. You can impede the privacy of all the landowners around you, all your neighbors and stuff. Whereas a garage suite typically will either be side of the house or front of the street, where your windows will overlook. So I don't see that as impeding or imposing. In fact, I think the way that, like with the subsequent decision that we made earlier here today, adding secondary suites into that, I don't see anybody rushing out to make more garage suites. We might be stuck at 3, maybe 4 by the time this comes up back into our discussion again. But I see more people reaching out to make the easy adjustment to their property and their home by, applying for the fee waivers of the secondary suites and doing those renovations that way. So I don't see garage suites as being an issue, and I do want more information on the garden suites. So thanks for the motion, Councillor Bosch.
Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I largely agree with Councillor Blackmore in that I think that this provides opportunity to create a suite that's lower impact than what's currently allowed. I think of, in my neighborhood, most properties, if you put in a 1-story backyard suite, there's not going to be privacy concerns because of fences and vegetation. You put in one above a garage, and all of a sudden, those privacy concerns start appearing. And so, to incentivize something that's smaller and doesn't have that same height, I think is probably desirable, but not with the regulations we have today. It does need more conversation. And I think for me, Councillor Blackmore, I would hate to change the rules that govern garage suites today, only to change them again in a few months if council decides to change them. And so for me, it wouldn't make sense to just pass bylaws as because we know we want to pass them eventually. For me, it really is if we're going to touch the regulations that impact garage suites, let's do them all at once, not do some measures today and some in a few months. So I think that it does make sense to remove this completely today and have more fulsome conversation around what we want to do with backyard and garage suites.
Councillor O'Toole. Sorry, I'm just jumping. A couple of you have already gone once. Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, I'm not really supportive of this motion. I am looking forward to coming back if it passes. But not every piece of property in Grande Prairie is suitable for these. And I think our bylaws will incorporate the ones that don't fit in. And yeah, I'll support it today to get through. But when it comes back, I got some questions later. Thank you.
Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. In research that I've done, I've spent quite a few hours in the last couple of weeks doing research on my own. And a lot of communities in BC had a lot of problems with garden suites because of access, because of subdivision, because they're didn't fit in. I think this fits into a larger lot in a rural area, and I think that would be a consideration if that were to come back that we could consider. But in a place where it has no rear access, I think this is not the place. So I think it's important we think this through so that we don't have people having to walk down your sidewalk or your driveway to go park, and you're at a small little place in the backyard. So I'd really appreciate if we would support this amendment so we can move on and get this going. Thank you.
All right, so if there's anything new, great. I think that you can do the math around the table, but recognize Councillor Berg.
Yeah, so speaking to new, around the garage suites, again, with East Haven, I don't think that we could remove those because, again, part of their application and sales pitch to us was that they could do the garage suites. They're already 2-story homes, so they can already look in your backyard. So putting a second story on top of a garage affects nothing. So what my fear is should we remove garage suites, we'll go back on our word from a developer that came to us in good faith, and we appreciated what they brought forward to us. So again, I don't want to go back on my word on that.
All right. So I'm going to have discussion or debate on the, I'm going to call the question on the amendment, which would have council removing. Sorry, Councillor O'Connor, do you need? Okay. I'm going to call the question on removing backyard suites from proposed bylaw C-1260-180. Call the question. Please vote. And that is carried 8-1. Now, I'm going to, I don't recall who did the the original first and second reading. Was it you, Councillor Blackmore? All right, so go to Councillor Blackmore for a motion on third reading.
I would move that council give third reading of bylaw C-1260-180 being an amendment to the land use bylaw. Doesn't have to be
as amended.
As amended?
Yeah.
As amended.
Perfect.
Many times as amended.
Perfect. All right, discussion or debate on third reading. Councillor Thiessen.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. As much as I want to help out with the housing situation, and trust me, I'm a housing guy. I think I've stated that for 11 years and worked towards creating more spaces in our community in doing that. When we entered into discussion, I was all for loosening some of our guidelines and maybe letting a trickle of the secondary sweet water flow out, but it seems like we've opened the entire damn floodgates. And I mean that DAM, as in we're flooding the township below with secondary suites. For me, I'm not comfortable with the blanket coverage of secondary suites. I know that they are limited to a certain amount, 8 within 30 meters. But when I did the math 2 weeks ago, that meant that there's potential to add 40 extra parking spaces to our street, and or to look into our driveway width bylaw again and to consider all the amendments to our driveway width bylaw that we might undertake from requests to have that extra parking spot because of a secondary suite. I don't believe this plan addresses illegal suites as much as I'd like that to happen. It's just not a reality. And for all the whispers across the room, lots have been said about parking, snow removal, trash removal, safety of kids crossing the street with the congested parking. And to me, it seems like it turns new home ownership into landlord-tenantship, where we were told by some of our delegates last week that this would be an opportunity for people to get into the housing market. When I got into the housing market about 15 years ago, it was to own my own home and to be free of renters and roommates, and I was able to do so. And that's for some people, but to be pushed into that situation where, as part of being an affordable option for them, now you're being forced to set up a secondary suite to deal with that. We also found out from our administration last week that with a lot of enforcement around these, or at least understanding how they're impacting the character of our neighborhoods, the safety of our neighborhoods, and the investment of our citizens into their neighborhoods, that really there wasn't a lot of mechanisms that we had thought of or designed in order to do enforcement, reporting, and to change course without coming to council after it got out of hand. So to me, that seems like a FANFO sort of policy plan, and I'm not really into that type of planning. I think what it's going to do, though, it's going to increase the retail price of homes for the potential revenue generation across the board within our community, which is, if you have many properties, it's a dream. You can all of a sudden start paying down your mortgages faster. For a developer, it's a dream. For a property management company, it's a dream. And for a realtor, it's good advice because right off the hop, that revenue generation potential is going to add something to the retail sale price of that home as they go in. So I don't even know if it's really exactly helping affordability, especially for new homeowners. So I have more, but I'm sure there's other people that have other issues with this. For me, I think this plan and opening the floodgates is exactly what it's stated in our report on this 2 weeks ago. Unintended consequences, and we will be dealing with them later. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I was kind of hoping that Councillor Bosch's amendment wouldn't pass because that vote went different a couple weeks ago, and I would have been an easy no on this bylaw. But for me, it's a tough one because I was on the losing vote of the density one. I am worried about that radius that we're establishing here a little bit. That being said, the other things we're loosening up I think are reasonable. I think for me, there is an important part of home ownership in secondary suites. I know I own a home today, and it's bluntly, I wouldn't own a home today if I hadn't spent the first 5 years of my marriage in a basement suite and with that more affordable rental that was available to us living in a basement than was available for apartments. It's why working at a couple nonprofit jobs that didn't pay well, my wife and I could save up a down payment. I also do think about this in terms of I'm in a home now in a neighborhood I love on a lot I absolutely love. And I don't know if I need my full-size home when my kids move out. And so it definitely is something that I think about. Maybe it helps me with my retirement and stay owning my home longer than I could elsewise. So for sure, there's investment sides of secondary suites, but I'm a personal example of why they really do support home ownership too. I do want to note that I keep on hearing from residents, we don't want another West Point, we don't want another West Point, we don't want another West Point, which I don't want either. And I think it is important to echo some of the things that are different, even if this bylaw passes, than were in place when West Point was built. There's right now there's maximum driveway widths can only be 40% of your lot. We've added additional parking requirements. The big one for me is the minimum road width's gone from 9 meters to 10.5 meters, which makes everything so much easier. And also our builders and our staff are doing a lot, are actually making sure that parking in the back connects to a door so it actually gets used. So I don't think that we're going towards another West Point if we do this. And also the density limits, even though I think we're maybe slacking those up a bit more than I'm comfortable with in this, they didn't exist when West Point got built, period. And so I don't think we're going to see what we've seen in previous builds in the community. So I do think that this is worth passing and also monitoring closely.
Thanks for your comments. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Appreciate Councillor Bressie bringing up West Point. It's always interesting. We want to learn from our mistakes, and I think between the city and industry, we've learned a lot from our mistakes on that. And so to that, I'm grateful that we'll never see that sort of a thing happen again in our community. Having said that, that area of the city's served a great need at one point with all those units being full at a time when we have 0% vacancy in our community. So let's not forget we have a 0% vacancy currently, we're being told by property managers and our industry, and so we need more units. Just going to tell a quick story about my previous life as a home builder. From 2008 to probably 13, the vast majority of up-down legal suites that I sold were to investors. I can say since about 13 on, the vast majority of the legal up-down suites my company sold while I was part of it were to homeowners. It's completely flipped in the last 10 years because of affordability. It was very common that it was an investor-driven thing now. Now it's a young couple buying a house so they can have a suite in the basement or their family can live in the basement because they need that income to actually buy a house. They would never qualify for a home otherwise. And so to take away that opportunity for somebody to have a home ownership, I just can't do that. I think that's the dream of everybody wants. Our city's already grateful, and I think we should be grateful that we have a high level of home ownership. I think by reducing these, you're actually going to have the unintended consequence of having more people that are forced into renting than having an ownership option. So I'm happy that we're moving this forward. It's to my opinion, long overdue.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. And I am going to support and move this through ideally. As I sit here, I think of two examples. Quite recently, about a year and a half ago, a young man, friend of my daughter's, he bought an up-down legal suite because of exactly that. Yeah, it cost probably $100,000, $120,000 more, but he was able to get in it and actually rent out the basement, and that helped him get into it. And then I also think of my uncle, but in a different market, and he bought an up-down legal suite, and for 10, 20 years lived upstairs, and then his retirement, as everyone moved out, he moved downstairs and rented the upstairs. So it allowed him to stay in place longer. And so those are just two examples of why I want to support this.
Thanks for your comments, Councillor Berg. I see no one else in the queue, so I'm going to call the question on third reading of Bylaw C-1260-180, being an amendment to the land use bylaw as amended. Please vote.
Bressie in favor.
And that carries 8-1. And I know Councillor Blackmore had some potential business arising, and also, did I just see Councillor Bressie get in and out of the queue? But first, I'll recognize Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. This is just going back now that we've closed this off to our garden suite conversation from earlier. And so my motion's to direct administration to bring a report back to the appropriate standing committee regarding garden suites about more details around their sizes, their design, and an engagement plan if we were to go ahead with them.
Okay, so we'll give administration a second to catch up on that. You want to speak to your motion at this point?
No, I'll just maybe repeat it for the. So direct administration to bring back a report to the appropriate standing committee around garden suites with more details around their sizes, design, and engagement plans.
Okay, perfect. So I'll give a second for that to get into our e-scribe. All right. Discussion or debate on that motion. Councillor Blackmore.
I will support this motion. I feel that garden suites would provide a certain part of the market a good way to both earn income or have a place to live. I've been in communities where garden suites are very successful. Sydney on Vancouver Island, for example, is a good place where garden suites have been very effective and do not detract from the beauty of the neighborhood and can be managed quite well. They're not 130 square meters, though. I don't want to see us. It's almost like we're feeling that we're going to be that the city's going to be overrun with garden suites, and that's not going to be the case. There's, in fact, not going to be very many lots that actually would work with a garden suite. So I just feel that it's not something we want to throw out altogether. And because the previous motions did pass tonight, I don't want to lose the work that our administration has done. And I'd like to see it come back again for a more fruitful discussion.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I will support this motion, and basically because it's not a blanket sweep on allowing garden suites. I think there's a time and a place for them, and I think if we put some work into where that is, that like Councillor Blackmore said, there will be opportunities for people. But I think as a blanket, it was not comfortable for me, and in certain areas, I think it'll work nicely.
Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, I'm just glad that Councillor Plott made that motion, and I'm looking to see what a minimum size would be, livable apartment size, as well as the maximum size. Thank you.
Councillor Plott to close.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'll be brief. I appreciate if we can support this motion. Having said that, to Councillor Blackmore's, I want to see us get into the market where we're doing garden suites. I'm hoping this report can come back and we can have further discussion, debate on what some of those things are. But I do think this is a very, very big component that is missing in our market when I think about people aging in place. We have a lot different community moving to Grande Prairie that this is more of a lifestyle choice that they would tend to have. And I constantly got told, why don't we build tiny homes? Well, there's no lots for tiny homes. This actually would allow a tiny home somewhere in its own way in a backyard. So I think there's a lot of really good things that can come with garden suites. So I'm looking forward to that report coming back and hopefully can support it.
Thanks for that close. Councillor Platt, call the question. That is carried 8-1. Councillor Blackmore, did you have some business arising, or are you good? Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Bressay, I saw you moving. You're good? Okay. So we don't have a recess tonight. There were no delegations. We're now going to move to council member reports, starting with Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. It's been a really busy 2 weeks, and so I'm glad I get to go first because I get to name everything.
Perfect.
That's perfect. So on the Here Comes Summer event, which was held at Muskogee Park for the grand opening of the Aquaterra outdoor pool, I have to say that event was very busy. Chief Lemieux told me that I served 4,900 hot dogs there.
So if you're increasing, I don't know, like last
what was it?
4,100 and.
So if you're looking for someone who's really skilled at putting the hot dog into the bun, I'm your girl.
Call 3 of them and ask for Councillor Blackmore, and she'll serve your hot dogs.
That's true. I also attended the 40th anniversary of the Guild of Artists. That was held at the Center for Creative Arts, and they had an art show. They were very grateful for the city grant funding, which provided them an opportunity to bring in an instructor from outside of Grande Prairie to give some lessons to the members of the Guild. And the Guild is, I think, has 23 members now, which is as many as they've ever had. So they feel like things are going well for them. I also had lunch with the Lieutenant Governor, Selma and Dr. Lakani. I met their honors at Jeffrey's, and we had a nice lunch and a good chat about all of the things happening in the province and all of the travels that we have been on between the three of us. I brought greetings on behalf of the city at D-Day Operations Overland at the Veterans Memorial Gardens. There was a lot of people at that event, and of course the Veterans Memorial Gardens are worth a walk through. If you've never been there, I would recommend that you go there for a walk. It's very well laid out. It's behind the old Army and Navy building. And it's a very interesting place. I also brought greetings again on behalf of the D Company Armory's Dinner and Dance that was held that evening. And I was pleased to welcome the consul from South Korea, the Consul General from South Korea, who's traveling across Canada, along with the consul in charge of Veterans Memorial Affairs, who are traveling across Canada to thank Canadians who made a serious impact on the war in Korea. We talk a lot about the Second World War, but we don't talk a lot about the impact that Canadians had in Korea. And yet, I was a Canadian infantry troop who really decided the turning point in that war on Hill 73, where they were being overrun by Chinese and called in an airstrike right over top of their own men, which turned the tide in the war effort in South Korea. And so that's why South Korean Consul General and the Consul of Veterans and Memorial Affairs is making this cross-country trip. They also joined us at Blueberry Mountain on Sunday, again recognizing the impact of the men who fought in the war at Korea, and particularly men from Blueberry Mountain, of which there were quite a number, including Colonel Jim Stone. I also attended the automated traffic enforcement engagement in Whitecourt, where the province attended to tell us what changes they're looking at making it automated traffic enforcement. And the communities of Whitecourt, Hinton, Whitecourt, Edson, Slave Lake, and Grande Prairie were able to let the province know what was working for us and what was not working. And there will be changes coming forward from the province, hopefully not as negative as news reporting may have indicated. And then I attended a Grande Prairie Airport Executive Committee meeting. That meeting was struck because we needed to move the date of the AGM. So the new date for the airport AGM is July 18th. And everyone is welcome to attend that. It's also available on Zoom, so it's not so hard to attend. I attended Lemonade Day on Saturday. There was only 3 groups of little kids out there when I went, because one group got cold and went home. They did an excellent job, and I didn't know that lemonade could taste like 3 remarkably different recipes. I'm not going to say which one was my favorite, but they were pretty interesting. And finally, on Saturday night, with several members of council, I attended the Grand Gala Gathering, which is the Friendship Center's biggest fundraiser of the year. And I went specifically to hear the musician Ace Abbey, who now lives in Toronto, but he was raised in a fly-in community in the north, and he is the most amazing guitar player. So if you ever have an opportunity to see Ace Abbey, he just is so fantastic. So it was great. And so I rushed through all that, Mayor Clayton, because I know everyone wants to talk for a long time.
Thanks for that, Councillor Blackmore. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Start off with a library meeting that I had, and it was nice to hear our planning committee is going to actually update our advocacy plan. It was kind of noted that between the board, a lot of our staff, and just some operations of the library, there's been lots of changes. So they will review the plan of service to make sure it aligns with the new advocacy plan. We also did some policy updates in that we aligned. Sorry, I'll just back up here one sec. Yeah, we did some policy updates around our vulnerable folks coming in and our youth coming in, and aligned more to what Eastlink's policies are currently. And lastly, I just want to mention for the library that we do have an event coming there this Saturday. It's the kickoff party from Saturday 22nd from noon to 4, and it's the kickoff for summer reading games as well. Outside of that, I attended a couple golf tournaments at NWP as well as Sunrise last week. Both events went off well, and somehow we avoided to get rained on in both, which was great as well. And then attended the Filipino flag raising, which was always great to see that community. And my highlight was probably the kids coming in for the Isabel Campbell tour with Councillor O'Connor. It's always fun having those kids come to the City Hall and into the chambers. And that's my report. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Councillor Plott. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. As has already been said, it was a very busy 2 weeks. Literally had a day and a half at my day job in the last couple of weeks. Attended the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference in Calgary. Lots of great sessions, tours, and conversations. Lots to digest and process, and hopefully some solid ideas to bring back to council. Represented Grande Prairie at the Northern Alberta Elected Leaders meeting in Fox Creek on Friday. Thank you to Councillor Bressy for setting up a tour of their recreation facilities. It's quite intriguing as to what they've done in Fox Creek, and again, I think there might be some ideas there for us going forward too. Grand Gala on Saturday night, again with the Friendship Center. Compliments to them. They've had a real rough couple of weeks. They had a fire in their building, although it was small. It had the potential to really cause them additional stress, and I know it did cause additional stress, but they pulled it off, the event, and it went well. Of course, they were also competing against a hockey game. The event was still sold out, although there were some empty chairs for people waiting for this game for 18 years. So we're anticipating a full house next year. And then also attended the city staff appreciation barbecue, and we appreciate the staff. And I got to man the prize table, so I got to be one of the good guys and get people to enter to win that. So those are some of the highlights over the last couple weeks. And that's my report.
Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'll keep mine short as a lot of stuff. 5 school tours in the last 2 weeks. Went to a neighborhood association workshop. Painted the rainbow crosswalk. Went there in the morning and the afternoon. And then went to the 25th anniversary of the 3D charity presentation at St. Pat's. And it was such a moving... I get emotional when you see someone survive cancer, and what they did for the parents is amazing. And all fundraised on their own. Went to the 40th anniversary Guild of Artists. Our last meeting of the year for the Youth Advisory Council, meeting at City Council. And they're looking to wrap up with an ice cream event at Mini Putt. And ribbon cutting for the 50th anniversary of Alberta Northwest. And the City of GP staff, I love doing the barbecue at the staff. They always give you a rough time and they're coming through. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, it's busy 2 weeks. I spent a good chunk of it out of town here, but I'll speak to some of those events. I had the honor to be the MC and help cut the ribbon for Pleasant View Lodge's grand opening a couple weekends ago. Really awesome addition to the region as far as housing. It'll ensure that people within the region, at least the Spirit River, MD, Spirit River, Rycroft, and surrounding areas, will have a place that they can call home in the form of a $35 million 3-story 92-unit, which includes 42 lodge rooms, as well as 52 designated supported living as units, as well as a 26-unit self-contained apartment building that is just going up behind that for those seniors that can live on their own but want to stay in community. So it was a very well-attended event. When you look at the population of the Spirit River town and the MD of Spirit River, the clicker number was over 1,500 people, which is about the total population of the town of Spirit River and the MD of Spirit River. So I know they weren't all there, but most of them were there, and it was on Spirit Days, so it was great to see that they came to support such a world-class building in their community, which really is stand out on the horizon. From there, I had the honor of being able to be the MC again for the Seniors Day kickoff at the Info Fair at the Jackpot Grill. That was really nice to see and talk with all the wonderful people that are offering services to our senior citizens, the people who established this country and this city far before we ever came here. So it was really great to be able to do them the honor of that and kicking off a wonderful Seniors Week. Unfortunately, that I wasn't able to be at because we had other things to do. And the last thing that I'll touch on as those other things to do was, I think I heard Councillor Berg mention the FCM conference. I was there as well with many other members of council from June 6th to 9th. And I guess kind of the highlight for me was the unexpected open bear pit question and answer session with the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. Definitely not something that I foresaw coming into the FCM, but I do have to give props where props are due to the Reeve of Northern Sunrise County, Miss Karina Williams, who managed to be the fourth person up to the mic to ask a question on the Peace Region's clean, responsible oil and gas production, and asking the Prime Minister if he had ever been here, which he admitted he had not. Her point is that the way the federal government talks about oil and gas, it all seems to be coming out of the Fort McMurray oil sands, whereas we know we procure oil and gas responsibly up here, cleanly, and probably better than anybody else in the world. So she did definitely invite him. I make a note of this because on Thursday, as I was waiting for my board meeting for ASHA in Edmonton, I decided to do a little doom scrolling on YouTube, and I happened to come by one pictured title that says PM gets booed off stage, so I decided to click that. It happened to be the Q&A session for FCM, which Reeve Karina Williams was the last question asked on that, which maintained a steady flow of views. And as of Saturday, that video had seen over 115,000 views of Reeve of Sunrise, Northern Sunrise County, promoting clean, sustainable, procurable Peace Region oil and gas. So thank you so much to our regional partners, Reeve Williams, for being courageous enough to step in front and to promote what we all are promoting out here, which we know, the best oil and gas and some of the best developed industry in the entire country. So thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Got to attend a number of these events, two notable highlights being the Grand Gathering Gala, always one of my favorite nights of the entire year. And FCM's it's always great getting to hear from other councils across the country about what they're doing in their communities to learn from their mistakes, but also steal their best ideas. A few other things that I got to attend is the United Way Breakfast Blitz. Thanks, Mayor Clayton, for hitting up our drive-through. It was the first time that we ever did that event, and we sold out a breakfast. So that was awesome. I was especially appreciative of, we had a few companies that bought 50 bags and just said donate them to Wapiti House or Sunrise House or other charities in town. So that was cool. And all the money that was raised from that will be going to a few food security programs here in our community. So thank you to everybody who supported that. Another event I got to attend to was I went to the Institute of Corporate Directors Conference. It was very interesting being in a conference filled with about 500 corporate directors from some of our largest corporations that operate in Canada and hearing what they're thinking about in terms of the conference is dominated by talk about how's the American election going to influence the Canadian economy and how can corporations both navigate both the dangers but also maximize the opportunities of AI. And so very interesting to hear how some of our corporate leaders were approaching those conversations. Then the last thing I'll highlight is apparently I'm a soccer parent now, and I got to attend my first ever outdoor soccer tournament here in Grande Prairie, and I've had neighbors in Smith highlight parking to me. I got to experience it for the first time on my own, and I do wonder if we should be having some conversations about parking around Rotary Fields, specifically with the alley and the field that a lot of people are just parking in. I think there might be some opportunities to maybe create some more, without spending a lot of money, make the parking situation better so that it's safer for the kids there and also less disruptive on the neighbors. So I might be picking council's or administration's brain about that. Don't want to spend a lot of money there, but I think there might be some easy things there now that I've experienced the nightmare it can be for myself.
Thanks for that, Councillor Bressie. Councillor O'Toole.
You haven't thought of a parkade though, right?
No. Low cost.
Thank you very much. I attended the combative sports meeting, and we're looking at the future here. Attended the FCM conference. At the conference, we had a meeting with CN Executive, the council that attended the FCM, our city council, and others. I also toured the CN Rail Intermodal facility north of Calgary, and they host warehouses for Canadian Tire, Tim Hortons, and I think it was I think it's Frigidaire. Filipino flag raising, we were there. Isabel Campbell School. Got to thank Mr. Michael Connor for being such a good, I guess you would call him, not a president, maybe a superintendent of the school system what we have here, because he's taken that on pretty hardcore. I attended the chamber ribbon cutting in the 50th anniversary for the United Way, Alberta Northwest. Did the city staff barbecue, and that was great. I handed out water. I also attended the biannual seniors tea out at Evergreen Park and passed cake around. We passed lunches around, and I did a little dancing because somebody wanted to dance with me, and I got to hear a lot of stories, and that's all part of the project. I attended an air show meeting for coming up at the end of July. And I also attended a barbecue for the past employees for the QE2 hospital. There was about 250 that showed up. And I didn't do hot dogs, but I did a lot of hamburgers. Lemonade Day. I was joined with Mayor Clayton, and we did the judging, and things were different this year. The lemonade wasn't so sweet, but the children were just as sweet as they ever were. And we did some judging, and we found some pretty darn good entrepreneurs. I did a fundraiser for the youth football. Now that you're a grandpa, you got to go to all these fundraisers. And Grand Gala was spoke about. Also, we had the AGM for Veterans Memorial Gardens. And also, I attended the annual Filipino Cultural Day at Muskosipi Park. And that is my roundtable.
Thanks for that, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. For me, several of what others did, going to FCM, and FCM is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. For those who don't know all the acronyms that are out there. Some things that we talked about again was housing and the cost of living, the Green Initiative funds, political climate facing electeds throughout the country. We built municipal relationships, and I have to say one really fun thing we did is have a Oilers watch party in the city of Calgary.
Florida.
Who said that? Oh yes, Councillor Bressie was the only non-Oiler there, and then there was 3,200 delegates there from all over Canada, and you know, Mayor Gondek had said, what better conference to have when you have a significant water issue and a crisis in your city, other than 3,200 people that would understand what you could possibly go through. So that was a great few days. We still did have enough water, so all was good. I attended the United Way 50th anniversary ribbon cutting. Not big on doing breakfast, so, you know, I did my part by going in the afternoon. I attended the Grande Prairie Local Immigration Partnership, and there was 2 presentations, one from the RCMP, and they presented on human trafficking and immigration-related fraud. And what was interesting about that is communities, mid-sized communities of our size, about 8% of the population base is reported either trafficking or related fraud, and in all aspects. And that statistic is incredibly low because most are unreported. So that was interesting. We also had a discussion about another presentation, and that was from the City of Grande Prairie through the Youth Outreach Project. And that is a federal grant that was given, runs till March 31st, 2026. And that comes out of the Building Safe Communities Fund and based around gang and gun violence and crimes. Luckily, our city has been pretty good on that front. Other communities are struggling with that. And we talked about youth that are from 6 to 26 years of age with at-risk behaviors in 5 domains in particular. And that was individual, family, peer, school, and community. So they have and of these groups, there was an overrepresentation of immigrants who were in these, in the need of outreach. Indigenous, young women, and the LGBTQIA groups. There is a ton more information on this, and it started November 17th, 2023, and again running till March 31st, 2026. And you could get more information through the City of Grande Prairie on how to, perhaps if you know youth who need to have some guidance. I attended the staff appreciation lunch, the biannual seniors tea at the Terra Center, and from 2 years ago to this year, I'm happy to say I knew a lot more people. It was awesome. They're fun, so fun. I attended the Northwest Polytechnic Convocation. That was nice to see. Everybody thought I was my sister because that's her place, but you know, whatever. Yeah. I attended the Grand Gathering Gala, and I'll just point out the other group of musicians. The headliner was the Prairie States. They were also really, really good. And they're 11-time winner of the Country Music Alberta Awards. Really nice group. The singer is a family friend. I didn't even know they were there until they were there, and really nice to meet them. Came from a small Indigenous community in northern Alberta, so great to see them on the track of such success. I attended the Lemonade Day and took a bunch of pictures. I love taking pictures of the kids. It's just so much fun, and saw some of the council. Sorry? That is all done through Community Features prior. So yes. And then yesterday I attended the, now let me hopefully say this right, Eid al-Alapa, the Arabic holiday of sacrifice, for the evening. Great food. Mayor Clayton was there as well. And yeah, that's it for my few days.
All right, thanks for that, Councillor Bosch. Most of the events I attended have been mentioned. I did attend a Northern Alberta Development Council outreach session with some other elected leaders from the region, as well as MLA Tani Yao and Chief Janet McEachran. I also attended a meeting with our CAO and Travis Tays with the Minister of Agriculture, RJ Sigurdsson. Had a meeting with Mayor Potter just to get caught up on a few things in the region. Attended the staff appreciation event, as mentioned, the United Way breakfast blitz, the Filipino flag raising in recognition of the June 12th Filipino Independence Day. Attended the biannual senior tea, the Northwestern Polytechnic Convocation, Lemonade Day, judging with Councillor O'Toole. Attended the Grand Gala Gathering, which was a great event. Was sad I didn't win anything this year. Attended the 3rd annual Filipino Cultural and Musical Heritage Festival yesterday between rain and hail showers. I was kind of fluked out there, so I was okay. Attended a meeting with a group of elected leaders and our administration to talk about potential regional collaboration. And last but not least, I want to talk and remind people who might be watching, if you'd like council to attend an event, even Councillor Blackmore, who will serve 4,900 hot dogs, there's a simple online form, you can request that. Or if you're a business who's having a special event, a special occasion, maybe an anniversary, Invest Grande Prairie has identified that they're looking for businesses to send in information so that we can recognize those. Both those opportunities are online, and we encourage people to fill those out. Or if you have a special 100th birthday, anything like that, we are willing to come out to your event. And especially Councillor Blackmore likes to serve hot dogs. So with that, I'll call the meeting adjourned, and I hope you have a good evening.